Warning, the following program contains news talk, solutions, and information not found in filtered media outlets. Welcome to Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. Viewer discretion is advised.
Attention. You are now about to enter
Filter Free Radio.
So open your mind, push reset, and reboot your computer.
You'll probably need earplugs, and if those aren't enough, hit yourself over the head with this.
Looking for filters? Check your coffee maker. This is Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. FilterFreeRadio.com. Get ready to suck down some grounds.
They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it.
Live every Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, Filter Free Radio.
All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged, and nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all.
Your number one source for unfiltered truth, analysis, and solutions. FilterFreeRadio.com.
Nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on. The fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
And it is time to wake the fuck up. Welcome to the broadcast live. It is the very first day of July 2013. Live on FilterFreeRadio.com. Also the home of Nicole Sandler, RadioOrNot.com, ProgressiveBlendRadio.com, and others. Liberal Justice Radio on TuneIn as well. It is so good to be with you. Jacob Dean here, broadcasting live in our Portland, Oregon headquarters of Filter Free Radio. By my side, as always, our super duper awesome mass producer, co-host, kick-ass, all-around good guy in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., Mr. Skeptical Scott.
Hello.
What's going
on?
How's it going, buddy? Hey! Hello?
How are you doing?
Hey, it is a jam-packed show. I'm doing fantastic, and I don't have time to sit around and not get into it, man. So we got to dive into it. In the second hour of the program, we're going to extensively go through this awesome conversation that we posted on our website at filterfreeradio.com and our Facebook page, Facebook.com/filterfreeradio, of Glenn Greenwald speaking to the 2013 Socialism Conference. That's right, the Socialism Conference. And I tell you, it will totally blow the socks off anything that you saw or heard from Netroots Nation's conference, that's for sure. So, Glenn Greenwald, big stuff coming up in the second hour. Also, I got to share with you some Julian Assange and some Jeremy Scahill. We got to get to all of that coming up as well. It is 3 days before the 4th of July. This is kind of like a very patriotic week. It's American, red, white, and blue. I got my red tie on with the blue shirt, trying to dress it up a little bit. And I want to ask the question, if anyone wants to call in to our comment line, which is open at 503-746-TALK. It's 503-746-8255. Anyone want to answer this question? Are you proud to be American? Is there anything that we should be proud of? Is there anything that you are ashamed of? Is there anything that we should be ashamed about being American? I think it's a fair question to ask. Matter of fact, the man who will remain nameless himself just recently said that he is ashamed. Don't believe me? Here's the clip.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in my life, I am ashamed of my country.
So I'm just curious if you agree with him or you agree with me. I agree. I think there's plenty to be ashamed about. What about the wars? What about the drone bombing? What about the Guantanamo torturing and the force feeding? We'll get to that next. What about the NSA? Shit. Come on. What about climate change and the lack of preparation, keeping us in the dark? What about allowing the corporate takeover of everything? What about attacking acts of conscience by whistleblowers who dare to come forward? There's a lot to be ashamed about. There's a lot to be proud about, too. I'm definitely proud of the fact that we can sit here and have this conversation. I mean, there are people in other places of the world that are hunkering in the middle of the night in a basement, doing everything they can to make sure that no one knows that they're trying to have a conversation like we're having and we're able to have right here. Our freedom of speech, our freedom of religion, the freedom of press, the freedom to petition the government for redresses of grievances. I am proud to be American as well. I think, though, we cannot be completely associated with it without having some sort of shame. I really want to know your thoughts on that. 503-746-TALK. Okay, so one of the things that we should be ashamed about is the wars, the torture in Guantanamo Bay, and I hope that you by now have seen some of these really awesome videos that I was very fortunate enough to be a part of this closed Guantanamo Bay solidarity protest in Portland, Oregon over the last month or so, ever since May 12th. May 12th is the day that Brian Wilson, he's an author, he's an activist, he's an attorney. Brian Wilson, author of the book Blood on the Tracks. He's been on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. He started a hunger strike here in Portland, started this vigil at City Hall downtown, which is right next to Terry Shrunk Plaza in Portland, Oregon. Started this hunger strike on May 12th. He was fasting at only 300 calories a day to basically be in solidarity with the detainees in Guantanamo Bay, 86 of whom have been cleared for release, yet they have not released them yet. And they're on hunger strike. There's over, I think, 100 of these detainees in Guantanamo Bay prison who have not been charged with a crime in 10 or 11 years. Can you imagine being in prison for over a decade and not being charged with a crime, just being held indefinitely? You think you'd be upset, right? These people would rather die than continue this torture. That is why they are on a hunger strike. They've been on a hunger strike for over 100 days, and it's getting to the point now where these people, these detainees, are literally starving to death. And the only way to keep them alive is to force feed them with this tube that they shove up their nose all the way down into their stomach and put Ensure in them. It's a liquid that you can buy at any grocery store. It's Ensure. And they're basically force feeding these prisoners, these detainees, some of whom have been cleared to be released and have not been released. And people say this isn't torture, or we should be proud to be American because everything that we do is fantastic. We are exceptional. No skeletons in this closet. I hope you have.
Yeah, it's time to debunk the myth of American exceptionalism.
Yes, amen, brother. I'm sorry. I'm pumped. There's so much to get to, and I want to start with because on June 26th, I believe it was Wednesday, last week on June 26th, it was the United Nations International Day in support of victims of torture. There were international actions in solidarity with the Guantanamo Bay hunger strikers, and actions in London, in Los Angeles, in New York, in Washington, D.C., where you are, Scott, in Portland, Oregon, where I am. There were actions nationwide in solidarity with closing Guantanamo Bay. The biggest action, I think the biggest news, comes to us from Washington, D.C., where Diane Wilson, one of the original hunger strikers who started her hunger strike, she's on a liquid-only hunger strike at the White House. She went over the fence. You know that fence at the White House where they go stand out in front of and protest, and some people have, handcuffed themselves to the fence and eventually
You're not even allowed to get up to the fence. If you get up to the fence, which means you've crossed over the little chain link, 3 or 4 feet area from the fence. If you even cross that chain link area to get to the fence, and you don't leave, they'll arrest you.
Here's what Diane Wilson did last week at the White House to bring attention to what the hell is going on in Guantanamo Bay and the torturing. And again, I want to ask this question this week. It is 4th of July week. Are you proud to be American, or are there a few things that we should be ashamed about? Here is this video. Diane Wilson, watch this.
Good street. Veteran Sergeant Rex had a response team over to have a call ASAP. For the fence line. On the sidewalk, everybody! On the sidewalk, everybody! On the sidewalk! On the sidewalk! On the sidewalk! Clear the air! On the sidewalk, everybody! On the sidewalk! On the sidewalk!
Sidewalk's closed. Back up, back up. Sidewalk's closed. Come on. Sidewalk's closed. Back up, back up. Back up. Get off the sidewalk. Get off the sidewalk. Come on. Sidewalk's closed.
Cross the street! Cross the street! Cross the street now! Cross the street!
All the way up.
Cross the street! Cross the street! Cross the street! Cross the street! Non-violence! Non-violence, officers!
Get across the street. Move back. Get across the street. Move back. Watch out. Get across. Cross the street, folks. Cross the street. Cross the street. Cross the street. So I'm moving across the street, folks. Gotta move back. Folks, gotta move back. Gotta cross the street.
There you go. So that is happening on International Day in support of victims of torture at the White House in our nation's capital. Meanwhile, that same day going on the other side of the country in Portland, Oregon, at City Hall downtown, 4th and Jefferson, yours truly went down to interview Brian Wilson on his hunger strike. I also went down to cover the protest that was happening at City Hall in solidarity with all of the actions going on nationwide. Come to find out, they were a guy short on this political street theater stunt that they were putting together. And I happened to
It's not a stunt, it's a protest.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I happened to be willing to, I guess, volunteer and participate and kind of star in this video that we put together, all of these different activists from Veterans for Peace and Occupy Portland and KBOO Community Radio locally in Portland, a few other local activists. We were participating in really cool actions, and they have been ever since May 12th. I want to show you this video that I put together of me being tortured, not really tortured. This is political street theater, but this is yours truly participating, getting active, showing up. I did not plan this. I did not intend to do this. I was just showing up to film it, and they were a person short, so I had this, someone else was there. They filmed it for me, and I got to participate.
You're also in the orange jumpsuit, too.
Yeah, so this was, by the way, this was the third day that I was there at the protest. The first day I went down and interviewed Brian and Joe Walsh, which those videos are up on our website. The second day I went down to film this force-feeding street theater protest. The third day I went down to film more of the street theater protesting. And the guy who the day before was playing the victim in the chair wasn't there. They were a guy short, so I got to play the starving detainee who's being force-fed and tortured. And of course, I after this video, which I've posted on our Facebook page and our website, I'm going to share a very special behind-the-scenes exclusive video, which no one has seen yet. It's actually kind of funny. So if you're wondering why is the fat guy playing a starving detainee in Guantanamo Bay, I'll answer that for you in just a second. But again, keep in mind the question throughout today's show. Are we proud to be Americans? Yes, freedom of speech, freedom of press, the freedom to petition our government. This is a good thing. But we should also be ashamed of some of the things that are being done in our name, in our country's name, in our government's name, etc., by us. So this is one example of what's going on. Here is the Portland, Oregon, closed Guantanamo solidarity protest video that we put together.
Here we go. Here we go.
And there you have it. So show up, get active, participate. Who knows what can happen? I can't tell you how much fun that was. How
it didn't look like you were having fun.
It's good acting. Am I destined for Hollywood now? Actor. Time to join the Screen Actors Guild, right?
SAG. So hey man, what made you do that? Because you obviously didn't sign up for that, but somehow you ended up participating rather than observing. What made you sort of cross that line as observer of a protest to actual participating in a protest?
In the moment, it simply was the only thing that we needed as a group putting on the street theater event to be filmed, and because all of the pieces of the puzzle were there, and you see there was a lot of volunteers making this happen. There was a lot of props. There was a lot of preparation, a lot of things involved. The only thing that literally was keeping it from happening was someone to volunteer to be in the chair and to play that part. And for me, I was already there. I was already motivated to show up. I was already motivated for the last, like I said, this was the third day that I was already at this protest. By the third day, I had gotten myself a little orange jumpsuit. I was going to, wear the orange jumpsuit and film, and kind of look like I was part of the protest, to kind of look the part in solidarity. And I get down there and we're filming, we're talking, and we're getting ready to go, and they need someone to sit in the chair and to play the part. And I'm like, well, if this is the only thing that's going to take to make it from not happening to happening, let's do it, because we need eyeballs to see this. And the bigger reason, I didn't even know this was happening, but literally half a block away, right behind us in Terry Shrunk Plaza, as we were protesting and doing this action, which you just saw, there was gathering a huge crowd of hundreds of people to celebrate the Supreme Court's decision on the Defense of Marriage Act. And I was, in the moment, I'm not going to lie, it was a little bittersweet moment for me, because I was happy to participate in the activism. I was happy to make a difference, to show up, to participate. And the fact that, I was there and was able to contribute even to a higher part of this demonstration, this protest, than I originally intended, that was really cool. And I felt really good about that. But at the same time, we were completely ignored. Completely ignored. Zero media coverage. Now, I posted these videos, the interview I did with Brian Wilson, the video that we just showed you. I posted them on our websites, put them up. I even took the liberty of writing out a little kind of like press release email, included a little bit of information about these things, included the video links, and wrote a little bit about it, and said thank you for your time and consideration. Hope that you can use this. I sent it out to everyone in my email contacts, all of Tom Hartman's people,
spammer,
all of the Radio or Not people. It's really not a spamming thing. I mean, all of us in this kind of network email each other occasionally when we get like exclusive projects done, when we're working on something that we just want to share with people. I mean, Kenny Pickett and I can't tell you how many times Kenny will make something and send it to us, be like, check out this new bit that I just put together, and or Rocky Mountain Mike, or these guys in this kind of progressive independent media circle that we've kind of formed, this family that we've formed. I sent it out to everyone, man. And yeah, maybe I shouldn't have sent it to people like Sam Cedar or Crooks and Liars or who knows what, but it got published. 2 people published it from the as a consequence of my actions of sending it out. It got published on 2 websites. Gotta Laugh.
Sweet.
Gotta Laugh, her website, thepoliticalcarnival.net. Gotta Laugh published the story. And, Scott, one of your personal favorite kind of independent news blogs, Dandelion Salad, published it. And I had their
very cool
their contact in our list from because and what's the website, by the way? It's dandelionsalad.wordpress.com, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. It's a great like independent little news website, but It was just, for me, it was, and the day before I had interviewed Brian Wilson, and you should go watch, we don't have time on this episode. I played the interview, the last show that we did on Nicole Sandler's show, but this 15, 16-minute interview that I did with Brian Wilson, he explained, I asked him kind of what motivated you to do this? Why did you decide to do this hunger strike? And he kind of explains in this interview, which you should go watch on our homepage, that it was all of these revelations of, what is the American empire doing in our name? What is our government doing in our name that is, behind these closed doors that we don't even know about, that they don't want us to know about? I mean, how can we continue to not do anything? I mean, we have to. It's not enough to just talk about it. We have to do something about it. And my idea was, well, I'm just going to show up and get active as part of the media to go cover this, because I found out about it on the Occupy Portland's calendar website. That's where I heard about this protest. It's not anywhere else. No one else is talking about it. It's not on the local news. It's not in the newspapers. It's not anywhere. It's as far as the corporate media is concerned, it doesn't exist. And that's the point. And that's why I showed up and said, well, hey, Brian, let me interview you. Why are you doing this hunger strike? What's going on? Why the solidarity with the Guantanamo hunger strikers? And by the third day, I'm in an orange jumpsuit myself, and they're a guy short in the street theater protest. So I hop in the chair, and I'm doing the activism, sort of, to the extent that that's activism. So... I can't tell you.
How'd you feel as you were, as you were doing it and after?
It's just way cool, man. I cannot articulate or express how good it felt to just, like I said, I was showing up to film it. That was my intent. That was my goal. And so I could come here tonight and show a cool video with you. That was the plan. And to be there, to actually have shown up, to not just talk about it, but to be about it, to follow my own preaching, if you will, and I actually showed up. That was step one. I was like, oh, man, this feels good to be here and to get active. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm engaging, I'm getting involved in the protest, and come to find out, well, there's a need over here, and I could actually feel that need, and it would make a much larger impact in the grand picture of the protest. And then we were able to do the street theater. And why is it such a big deal? Well, like I said, and we're going to get to this right after the break. We're going to take a real short break here. But I've got to share with you the behind-the-scenes video that no one else has seen. This is a Filter Free Radio exclusive, so you don't want to go anywhere. I'm going to share that next with you and explain why there were so many other people right around us and why I really wanted people to see what we were doing. And this ultimately really motivated me to participate in the activism. It's independent, alternative media, Filter Free Radio, filterfreeradio.com. We'll be right back.
When you talk about me, do you stick to the memory?
Disappointed yet again by Sunday morning political talk shows brought to you by the mainstream media? Don't let them ruin your Mondays.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
There's a fresh way, a filter-free way to jumpstart your news week. On Monday nights, come experience Jacob Dean, host of Filter Free Radio.
He is the most interesting man in the world.
Finally, there's a radio talker who will arm you with the real facts, all the facts, and guide you through the labyrinth of fake news and false punditry. Each week, Jacob Dean throws out all those worn-out memes, crystallizes important issues, champions progressive causes, and features constructive solutions. That's Filter Free Radio, every Monday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on the Ustream home of Nicole Sandler, RadioOrNot.com, and FilterFreeRadio.com, the official website of Filter Free Radio.
Food and drink companies lay out millions of dollars every year to apply the best science to their products. For example, the folks who brew Samuel Adams beer spent 2 years and $1 million to improve their product, not the beer, the can. The Boston-based beer maker is now marketing canned suds, but not just any can. This one has a bigger lid that, quote, forces people to open their mouths wider, allowing more air to pass through and go up into the nasal passages. Are we to drink this brew or inhale it? Well, sniffs a beer consultant, increased exposure to the smells is what consumers associate with a fresher beverage. I don't think so, bud. I've personally pursued a lifetime of consumer research on proper beer flavors, and I find that I get more fresh beverage joy from the liquid than the fumes. Still, I do appreciate the whole sensory experience of the brewer's art. What I do not appreciate is the consumer deceits that so many purveyors of corporate edibles are trying to pull off these days. One deception is to make a food product look like something it's not. This comes from the corporate advertising departments, which insist that, quote, people eat with their eyes. Thus, the latest fad in food manufacturing is to tweak the uniformly shaped assembly line foodstuffs so they appear freshly prepared, even homemade. For example, McDonald's new Egg McMuffin has replaced the old perfectly round hockey puck-shaped egg with a looser, just-cooked look. Likewise, Kraft Foods spent 2 years developing a new automated process to cut its carving board line of packaged lunch meats in thick, uneven slabs. The product now looks like Mom pulled leftover turkey from the fridge and sliced it with a kitchen knife. Homey, huh? This is Jim Hightower saying they call this perfecting imperfection. How unreal is that?
Hightower's commentaries are brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown, the monthly newsletter with Hightower's populist take on what the powers that be are up to. Find out more at hightowerlowdown.org.
The More Me Show with DJ Downtown and Eddie Herradura, live from our nation's capital, every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, with hilariously scathing inches from the Beltway analysis of this week's political and social developments. The More Me Show at ProgressiveBlendRadio.com and RadioOrNot.com.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to The Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Greg Palast, I realized as we were talking that actually we were supposed to do this on Wednesday, so thank you so much for bearing with me.
Well, I am thrilled that we're doing that. You've jumped the other characters. Because, Nicole, I just think that your show is brilliant, and I want to thank you because my stuff may be prime time in Britain, but here I keep slamming into the electronic Berlin Wall, and you have snuck me across and into the information stream, and I hope that your listeners are aware of how important and precious your program is, so I want to thank you.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
Hey! Are you living in a progressive talk void? If so, be sure to visit leftwingradiostations.com. The state-by-state listing is a quick and easy way to find any left-wing talk radio station across America, from sea to shining sea. Your progressive talk nirvana is only a click away at leftwingradiostations.com. Be sure to like Left Wing Radio Stations on Facebook and share it with your friends. leftwingradiostations.com. United we stand. Raising awareness and eyebrows, this is Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it.
Welcome back to the show. For the record, this is a fucking awesome song. And I always get pissed off at the radio because usually anytime I hear the song, there comes on this big, fat-ass, pompous blowhard who happens to start talking all over it. And I happened to tune into that program the other day, and I heard this song, and I'm like, you know, this is a fantastic song, brilliant lyrics, and I don't know how this asshole has gotten away for so long for using this brilliant tune as his theme song. So I just kind of want to take this one back, and I love this riff, and I will play it more often. And I just wanted to share that with you. And I posted a link to that song on our Facebook page, The Pretenders, My City Is Gone. It's good stuff. So Anyways, welcome back to the show. Jacob Dean, Skeptical Scott here, filterfreeradio.com and radioornot.com, progressiveblendradio.com, and others. Always good to have you with us, however you may be watching us or listening to the program. It's 100 degrees in Portland today. It is hot as shit, and I just wanted to share that with you. This is why I'm so red and so sweaty. And, maybe a slightly irritated makes for better radio. So there you go. Maybe it's a there's a bright side to everything, right? I don't know. Coming up, by the way, in the second hour of this program, we're going to get into a little bit of this fantastic conversation with Glenn Greenwald.
There's really no point in talking about political problems and systemic injustices if you're not simultaneously grappling with the question of what is it that I as an individual can do about it.
Boom. Or, we're asking the question, are you proud to be an American this 4th of July weekend, or are there things that we are ashamed of? For example, George Carlin had this to say on, if you're asking us to be proud or ashamed of something, let's analyze what that something is first, and then we can say, well, are we ashamed or are we proud of this?
Mile after mile of mall after mall. Many, many malls. Major malls and mini malls. They put the mini malls in between the major malls. And in between the mini malls, they put the mini marts. And in between the mini marts, you got the car lots, gas stations, muffler shops, laundromats, cheap hotels, fast food joints, strip clubs, and dirty bookstores. America the Beautiful. One big transcontinental commercial cesspool. And how do the people feel about all this? How do the people feel about living in a coast-to-coast shopping mall? Well, they think it's just fucking dandy.
So there you go. And by the way, Paula Deen, we'll bring up Paula Deen as well this episode. So lots to get to, lots of good stuff to get to. Here is, as promised, this is a very special, this is a very exclusive. No one has seen this ever until right here, right now, and you're very welcome. This is a behind-the-scenes, super-duper, extra exclusive, not aired before, not posted on any website. This is not uploaded on our YouTube. You can't find this anywhere except right here, right now, so don't turn away. This is behind the scenes of what was going on at this Guantanamo Bay protest that I attended here at City Hall in Portland. And then it shifts to what is going on right next to us and how we continue to be ignored. And then I want to touch on why it's a little bittersweet moment, and then we'll move forward into the rest of the news. Here is this video. Check this out.
So he knows what he's doing. So he told me he's done this before. You know what? My strap is not going to fit across this giant chest.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Well, you got to lift that arm.
Does anybody have any tape? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Let me just make a modification here. You have duct tape? He's got duct tape. Okay. Well, just let me think about this a second. 70,000 bucks. Actually, more. So I need to spit out my gums. So I can really get into that part. Right. You got some duct tape?
Swallow it. Inhale it.
Is that the S thing? That's it. That's the S thing. It's laying on the ground.
Hang this through their nose. Hey, man.
So let's put your hands in here. Boy, you have giant hands too. God, you're really taxing my equipment here, man.
The wrong.
You're not. You're pretty well fed though to be starving. That's the thing.
That's what I was saying. I wish I looked a little bit more the part.
We should have had you starving for a couple of weeks before you came on here. So that looks pretty good. Now, I want to make sure that this is down.
Get ready to get ready.
Now, we have to make sure this is not too tight, because when he starts flailing, this is liable to come up.
Yeah, better.
I mean, I'm just thinking that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think.
Well, he's not going to be flailing with his hands because his hands are down. That's
right.
So most of it is going to be just. I mean, your action tied in.
Are you reasonably comfortable? Is this in like?
I'm actually fine.
So you'll be alongside of us. Right. When I stop and we turn like this, you'll be alongside of us and have it pointing.
Somebody across the street, but we're going to reassemble it.
So it's maybe 4 blocks up from your tower.
Okay.
All right, so let's see. So are we ready?
Close.
Kevin, we're going. Well, we're gonna wait for these people to go.
I'm assuming for $8 it's not.
Are you all set?
Covered or anything.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
What's up, guys? Tell us about the victory today.
Awesome.
Fabulous.
Good for what your guys are doing.
Woo! Right on. Get out there, get active, show up.
We've got to do this for ourselves. And it's not going to be easy. Look around this crowd right now and it's going to be easy because we all believe. Everyone here believes in equality, and that's why
What did you say?
I just heard the newscaster from KTU saying I'm not sure if we can find the right gay couple here.
What did you hear the news people say?
I'm not sure if we can find the right gay couple here.
I wonder what that means. As you can see, the news is showing up to cover a story over here, but everyone's ignoring the story that's over here. That's been going on here for a couple of weeks now and continues. Not that this isn't important, but we're just, the corporate media likes to filter things out, only cover things that they need to cover, these kinds of things. Let's not talk about the real issues. Let's not talk about the American empire. Let's not talk about, just worry about marriage equality, not to diminish that in any way, but the bigger issues, torture, the American empire, these kinds of things. Let's cover the real news, know what I'm saying? Definitely, I think, a little bittersweet moment there. And the bittersweetness is, here we are. I mean, the other protesters, the other activists in Portland who have been protesting the Guantanamo Bay solidarity protest at City Hall, they have been doing it every single day, Monday through Friday, from 4 to 6 p.m. since May 12th. That is over almost a month and a half now, and not one single report, story, news coverage, and it's not like the news wasn't there. That's my point. Am I sad? Yeah, well, it's kind of like, it's frustrating to go out of your way to participate, to do the right thing, to try to make a point, to participate, only to be ignored or rejected, or these kinds of things to be shut out, and to be rendered ultimately ineffective. The goal is to raise awareness. The goal is to bring about awareness and ultimately a change. So to kind of have all these people walking by you to just kind of ignore you, to go not to go to a protest and not to go to a demonstration to go get active, but to go to a celebration. It's like you can't even get people to show up to participate or get active anymore. You can only get people to show up if it's a celebration, if it's a celebratory kind of thing, So I don't know. Like I said, not to diminish them or that decision or that's kind of, And I mean, really, what are you celebrating? You're just celebrating another kickback to states' rights. Well, the states have the right to discriminate on marriage if they'd like to or not. So that's really a big whoop.
That's all that says. And by the way, there's 14 states that don't. So kudos. You still have 38 states that discriminate. I mean,
Oregon's one of them.
It's not. Here's the problem. The problem is that this whole gay rights issue, the marijuana legalization issue, what's another I would consider a secondary issue? It's what Wall Street, it's what the power elite, it's what those who actually pull the strings in our so-called halls of government want. They're just like, oh, good, you'll go protest gay rights. That's fine. We'll be over here pilfering all the money out of the economic system, so you guys are so frickin' poor. It's like it's a secondary issue, and it's a secondary issue because what they do is, and this is how nationalism works, and this is how oligarchies work, is that you oppress a minority. And I mean, let's face it, black people and Hispanics and any other poor socioeconomic class is far more oppressed than homosexuals. And obviously economic oppression and suppression is much worse than just being able to have the right to be married and write things off in your taxes and be with your loved one in the hospital and so on. And not to diminish, of course, their subjugation at all, but the point here is that when you scapegoat people, and the homosexual community has been a scapegoat for a long time, and so they finally resisted, and good for them for resisting, but they're resisting within a microcosm, which is what they want.
Oh, Jeremy Scahill was getting ready to give us the what for there, and he's firing off there a little bit early. Sorry about that, man.
That's all right.
And Vic,
but my point is that repeal of DOMA is, it's a marginal victory at best.
Prioritizing. Vic in the chat room puts it this way: the world's going to burn to death, but marriage equality.
Exactly.
So that's a good one.
And man. You can smoke your weed and marry and have marriage equality. Awesome.
Hey, we did a whole program on this show dedicated to legalizing marijuana, and that actually still to this day is the most watched video we have on YouTube of any video we've ever put up on YouTube. And
well, that's disheartening.
but another bittersweet filter-free fact. But the point being is, let's prioritize the importance of the activism or the issue or what's at stake. Marriage equality, on the scale of important or not important, definitely important. On the scale of important relative to global warming, climate change, relative to American empire,
annihilation of the species and elimination of our democracy. I mean, these are all secondary issues, and the reason that the larger issues being ignored is because if the larger issue was to be addressed, then the rest of these issues would fall in line.
Right.
If we had a real democracy, we'd have legal marijuana, we'd have everybody equal rights for everybody, we'd have national health care, we'd have all 100% employment. We'd have all these things that we consider a basic civil society that functions properly. If we were to actually have a real democracy, and if we had movements that frighten the power structure into doing the will of the people.
Bingo.
As it stands now, we all just sort of sit around and go, okay, I get my gay rights, I get my legalized marijuana, but guess what? Blacks in the South can't vote. And if they did vote, who are they going to vote for? Obama? What good's that going to do anybody? You know what I mean? It's like, even if you did, and that's another issue too we didn't talk about yet, is there's a repeal of the Voting Rights Act, which is upsetting to a lot of those who marched in the 60s to get the Voting Rights Act. But by the same token, who are they going to vote for? You're going to vote for what?
Yeah.
The same corporate toadies that anybody else is going to vote for. Voting is a lost issue. It's extemporaneous at best. And it's something that we should work for, 10% of the time max, instead of being at the end-all be-all for so-called activism.
I think it's very important to focus on messaging and to get the right points across as well. And if we talk about climate change, if we're talking about, we need to fight for the planet, we need to fight for our environment. I mean, really, I love Lava Q's comment in our chat room, which you can participate and join for free right now, filterfreeradio.com, radioornot.com. Don't worry, the planet's going to survive just fine without human habitation. And
I love that. That's the big misnomer, is that we're killing the planet. No, actually, the planet will still be here. We'll just wipe the human species off of it.
Exactly. So don't get me wrong. Anytime I want to talk about climate change, anytime I want to bring up the fact it's 100 fucking degrees in Portland, Oregon, I'm sweating something fierce right now. And
are you saying it's not normally 100 there?
No. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, we have this thing in Portland. I don't like to talk about this publicly, but it's like, how come you don't have an air conditioner in your window? How come you didn't put an air conditioner in your window? Well, Portlandians don't put the air conditioner in the window until we actually get that 1 week out of the year that it's over 90 degrees. And usually it's only 1 week a year, and it's a hell of a week. But this is why, anyways, don't get me wrong. It's a call for us to protect ourselves and the longevity of our species and the human history. I mean, I like humanity for the most part. I'm a people person. I enjoy people. I enjoy hanging out and talking with Scott and doing this show and going and socializing and participating and getting active. For the most part, I love humanity, and it all comes back to that for me, which is why I try to do the things I want to do, try to help out for the greater good. Even, a lot of people that I'm fighting for the same rights are in complete opposition to our theories, my theories, and what I'm trying to do. It's kind of this, this overarching love that trumps any other disagreement, disagreement on political view or economic view or whatever. We might disagree on this or that, but the point is we all love each other, and we're going to do the right thing to make the difference. On that note,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
On that note, I got a ton of stuff to move on. So you want to wrap up real quick on that thought?
Oh, I was going to say what you basically summarized there was what's happening in Brazil, where there's coalitions of everybody. I mean, it's like across the spectrum. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a socialist, communist, gay rights activist, or whatever the individual issue is. In Brazil, there's millions of people on the streets agitating for the fact that their government's not addressing any of it.
Right.
Socioeconomics and things of this nature. And so I think they're a really good example for what we need to be doing, because they shut the country down and look, the president and the parliament are acquiescing, and they're passing these break bills and stuff really fast to sort of accommodate people so that they would hopefully back down and stop this whole protest movement and just sort of then keep their power and go about their business. But what's happening is, and this is the larger issue, is that everybody is on agreement that shit is fucked up and nothing's being done about it, and their government is corrupt. Okay, and the same, I think, can be said for Americans. I mean, the Tea Party people, I used to ridicule these people because they're racist and they hate Obama and blah, blah, blah. But they're right. The government is corrupt, and it's becoming tyrannical. I mean, if nothing, the NSA shows that they want to eliminate public privacy as we know it. They just for the whole world, not just for American citizens. And so I think it's not a left-right thing. It's across the spectrum. Whatever your issue is, we need to all come together and form a larger coalition to say we need to agitate for a government that works for us. And then from there, we can pick our individual issues to force the government to address them. But in the meantime, nothing's going to change until we force them to address the larger issue, and that is the fact that our government only works of, by, and for roughly 400 people. The 1/10, the 1/1000th of 1% who own all the money, in the world. The wealthy elites. So it's really such a tip of the scales that until the saying goes, we are many and they are few. Until the American populace realizes how much power we have as a mass, strength in numbers, nothing's going to change.
One more point that I want to make, I guess, on the Guantanamo solidarity protests I got to participate in, and the videos and stuff that we've been talking about and sharing on this hour. The line, the mantra of Brian Wilson, the man that I interviewed, who's our Portland's hunger striker, and the author and whatnot, he has this mantra that is, quote, "We are not worth more, they are not worth less." And so, just to be in the vicinity of this so-called celebration for equality of marriage, and to be completely ignored and rendered invisible as we were trying to express a larger frame of equality. It just, the disconnect bothered me there. And I don't know if I was able to articulate that as well as I wanted to, but I hope you get my point. So, anyways, on that, we have to run to a quick break. So we're going to take our top of the hour break here for about 5 minutes. Go get a glass of water because I need to stay hydrated. It's 100 degrees, almost like the climate is changing. I don't know how hot it is where you are. 130 degrees down in Death Valley, California. You can't tell me shit isn't heating up. When we come back, Jeremy Scahill, Julian Assange, and Glenn Greenwald. You do not want to miss this. It's Filter Free Radio, your home for independent, alternative, radical, truth-telling media. FilterFreeRadio.com.
You're listening to and watching Filter Free Radio. Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
I mean, that's the whole reason Obama got elected in 2008 was he co-opted hope. You can't fight against hope, but hope has to have action. I could bash hope for a little bit here. If you say you hope for something, it really means you're giving up the power to do anything about it. I hope climate change will stop. I hope fill in the blank. If you're going to use the word hope, you have to use it as a backing for your actions. It has to be a motivator for what you're doing. You can't just passively hope. That, by definition, is just giving up power and really actually completely fruitless. There's never going to be any results for you. It's false hope, and hope has to have action. We are here futilely. Only hundreds of us chaining ourselves to the White House fence, willfully getting arrested because we hope this will bring some awareness for change, and it's just a small stepping stone. This is what hope looks like.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
Americans across the country are already paying the price of inaction.
Brace for impact. Extreme heat is on the way for the U.S.
And it should be a debate about policies which work as opposed to slogans which sound good.
Australia's Prime Minister pays the political price for carbon tax.
When horrible accidents like these occur, it's imperative that they're thoroughly and expeditiously investigated.
Deadly chemical plant explosions brought to you by the chemical industry. Fracking studies again say fracking causes water pollution. Plus,
I want to lead the effort
to launch a clean energy revolution in our country.
Massachusetts climate hawk Ed Markey heads to the Senate.
All of that and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
But the water on fire, that is kind of the most pleasant part of consequences. Really, the more significant thing is, I don't know, poisoned water.
Yeah. Oh, John Oliver, you say that like it's a bad thing. And with a British accent, so it sounds even worse. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, brace for impact. Another heat wave getting ready to hit the country?
Yes, be careful out there. The U.S. National Weather Service is warning of a potentially historic and deadly heat wave in coming days for the southwest U.S. It has all the ingredients, they say, to break the record for the world's hottest temperature ever recorded.
What part of global warming is a hoax does global warming not understand?
Well, just so you know, the heat wave will be prolonged because of a stalled weather system. It's theorized that the rapidly warming Arctic is slowing down the jet stream, making weather systems stall in place more often. It's called a blocking pattern. That same blocking pattern was responsible for the record heat wave in Russia, the biblical floods in Pakistan a few years ago, the catastrophic European heat wave in 2003, record floods in Central Europe a few weeks ago, and just last week, a blocking pattern caused relentless rains in Alberta, Canada, that led to record flooding in Calgary that dislodged and ruptured an oil pipeline. In India, a similar blocking pattern caused a record deluge from a record early monsoon season that's causing catastrophic flooding that has killed over 1,000 people.
Oh, anyone can round up a bunch of facts and say them.
Yeah, that's kind of how science works.
Whatever.
A blocking pattern of a different kind in Australia, where Australia's first female prime minister, Julia Gillard, was ousted on Wednesday 1 year after launching a nationwide carbon tax on its biggest industrial polluters. As she said at the time, the carbon tax has not crashed Australia's economy.
Wow, this is a big deal. Does this mean the carbon tax is being killed along with her being tossed out?
Very likely, after a relentless attack campaign from Australia's conservatives and industrial polluters that was waged in Rupert Murdoch's media outlets. Her parliamentary colleagues voted to replace her this week with her predecessor, Kevin Rudd, who suggested he will dump the carbon tax and try an emissions trading scheme instead.
Why don't we just get rid of the middleman and make Rupert Murdoch the Earth's commissar? I mean, really, this is... all right, press on.
Remember the deadly fertilizer explosion in West Texas in April?
Yes, I do.
And the recent deadly chemical explosions in Louisiana just a few weeks ago?
Yes.
A new report from the U.S. Chemical Safety Board says the U.S. has a patchwork of standards that are decades old and far weaker than other countries.
Ammonium nitrate fertilizer storage falls under a patchwork of U.S. safety standards and guidances, a patchwork that has many large holes.
That's Rafael Moray-Rosso, chairman of the U.S. Chemical Safety Board, in a Senate hearing on Thursday, testifying that the West Fertilizer Company did not utilize basic fire safety because the laws do not require it, because the chemical industry has successfully lobbied against the Chemical Safety Board's recommended minimum standards.
And so they all use voluntary standards, as he was saying when he talked about the West Chemical Plant fertilizer explosion.
At West, fire code provisions were strictly voluntary, and West Fertilizers had not volunteered.
Unbelievable.
And the fracking industry has also successfully lobbied to prevent any regulation of their industries. Now, 2 new studies again suggest nearby fracking operations are the most likely cause for higher levels of methane in water wells in parts of the U.S. Finally, some good news.
We can combat climate change, break our dependence upon imported oil, and create jobs here in Massachusetts and across our country.
Representative Ed Markey on Tuesday won a special election to fill the Massachusetts Senate seat left vacant by Secretary of State John Kerry. Markey is a fierce fighter for action on climate change. Hopefully he can get some action going in the Senate.
Well, we may expect great things in the Senate, but who's going to take his place in the House? He was a great hawk in the House. Anybody left there?
It depends on climate hawks in Massachusetts.
Glad he's in the Senate. Still worried about the House. For much more on that story and all the other ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. While you're there, please consider a donation to help sustain the Green News Report. We rely on you, not the fracking or chemical industries. Find us and like us on the Facebook. Follow us on the Twitters at Green News Report. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
We're having a heat wave, a tropical heat wave. The temperature's rising, it isn't surprising. She certainly can. She started the heat wave by letting her feet wave.
Hi, this is Adam Hebert, host of Mic Check Radio, and here is a small sample of the silliness you'll hear on my program. You know, there's only one way to describe what's going on among the right wing. It's road rage.
Yep.
It's road rage. Because
and
they thought...
a great name for a Supreme Court themed porno. I would definitely, if they made the road rage porno, A, I would definitely buy that, and B, they definitely need Jenna Jameson as Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
That's Mic Check Radio with Adam Hebert every Saturday evening, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Mic Check Radio. Smarter than Savage, sexier than Limbaugh.
Your number one source for undiluted truth, analysis, and solutions. This is Filter Free Radio. This is what democracy looks like. FilterFreeRadio.com. And now, your host, Jacob Dean.
We need a movement of truth tellers. The kind of progressive grassroots movement.
A social movement that they can engage in that's not the politics of hatred, that's not the politics of fear, but the politics of hope.
There's two ways to approach history. You sit in your armchair and you watch it on the news and you return to your PlayStation, or you get out in the streets and you make it.
They can push the rest of us to wake up and do something about this.
People need to rise up and say, I'm sick of this.
Seeing themselves as a huge movement to transform the nation.
The change that we want comes from below. It comes from a movement.
That the American people can and will find ways to push for the kinds of changes that can get us out of this dilemma.
I want to see that change, and it's going to take people here in this country to be able to make that happen.
And welcome back to the second hour of the broadcast. It is so good to be with you, broadcasting live on our website, FilterFreeRadio.com. Also, the home of Nicole Sandler, RadioOrNot.com, ProgressiveBlendRadio.com, and syndicated on Liberal Justice Radio. This hour, we've got to get to a whole bunch of stuff.
There's really no point in talking about political problems and systemic injustices if you're not simultaneously grappling with the question of what is it that I as an individual can do about it.
That is the man who gave a awesome, brilliant, hour-long conversation to the Socialism Conference that was just in Chicago. Will from Chicago, Adam, looking at you guys. The 2013 Socialism Conference, Glenn Greenwald spoke at just a day ago, and we posted the video on our Facebook page, on our website at filterfreeradio.com. We'll get to that for the rest of this hour in just a second, but first I want to start with the man behind the new film. Have you seen this movie yet? I have not seen it yet. There's one independent theater in Portland that's actually showing this, the brand new film from Jeremy Scahill called Dirty Wars. Jeremy Scahill's also got a new book out, same title, Dirty Wars. And in this clip right here, this first clip I want to play from Jeremy, kind of sets up the premise of Dirty Wars, but again, the theme, this is 4th of July week. In 3 days, we're all going to put on our red, white, and blue and be patriotic Americans. I, for one, am a very proud American. I'm proud of my freedom of speech. I'm proud of the fact that we can actually sit here and have this conversation. We do have the freedom to do that. I'm proud that we have the freedom of religion to practice whatever religion we'd like to. I'm proud that we have the freedom of the press. I got a clip from Amy Goodman I got to play later about that. And, of course, our freedom to petition the government for redresses of grievances. That's always a fun one. But we'll get to that in just a second. But they're saying maybe there's something that we should be ashamed about as well, or keep in mind in the back of our mind as everyone's, red, white, and blue. And hey, I got my red, white, and blue on, and it's 4th of July, and isn't everything perfect? And America is completely exceptional. Keep a couple of things in mind. How about the wars? How about the drone bombings? How about the Guantanamo Bay hunger strike, torture, force feeding? What about this NSA massive surveillance, the eradication of personal privacy? Does that make you feel proud? What about climate change? Are you feeling the heat wave? Are you proud of us not getting off of dirty fossil fuels right now? Are you proud of us trying to push through more coal exporting in the Pacific Northwest? Really? If you don't know anything about that, you got to go back and watch our old shows. I mean, are you proud of the corporate takeover of our country and our government? Are you proud of the attacks on consciousness of the whistleblowers? I'm not. Jeremy Scahill on hope and change. Really, think about this.
When Barack Obama was first running for president in 2007 and then ultimately elected in 2008, there was this perception that he was going to radically change the way that the U.S. fought its wars. He campaigned on a pledge to close Guantanamo, said that he was against torture, pledged to basically dismantle the Bush-Cheney counterterrorism apparatus. In reality, though, what has happened under President Obama's administration is that he has solidified some of the more egregious aspects of the Bush-Cheney program. And many of the changes that we've seen in the torture program, with the renditions, with the targeted killing program, they're largely rebranding operations.
I think you can still be a proud American and still practice your petitioning the government of your redresses of grievances. Scott, what's the line about dissent being the highest form of patriotism?
You just said it.
Oh. Do you want to speak to that for a second before I play the next clip?
Dissent is the highest form of patriotism. I mean, it's not enough to just go along and get along. You have to raise your hand against the grain, if you will, and say, this is wrong. Because everybody else, who else is going to do it? And then the most remarkable thing about being the lone dissenter is, first you're ridiculed, first you're ignored, then you're ridiculed, and I can't remember the rest of it, but essentially you give people the opportunity to say, yeah, that guy's right. I've been quiet. I'm glad someone spoke up, and I'll support this. You know what I mean? So somebody has to do it, and then hopefully enough people will realize that, the error of the ways and say, I agree with that person, and it builds from there, and eventually you get a movement, and then a deluge. It just sort of happens, and all of a sudden there's millions of people in the streets protesting and agitating for change. But the most important thing is that change does not come from electing the right people. Obviously, we learned that with Obama. Let's face it.
It's a scam.
Yeah, I was as hopeful as anybody, donating money to his campaign and campaigning for him and thinking, wow, this is going to be great. And, it's worse now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with him, obviously. It's just he's part of the system that perpetuates the status quo. And so
which has
you can't personalize it to anybody. You can't make it any one individual. It's really about the system as a whole, and these people rise up to the highest form of this meritocracy by playing the game better than anybody else, and the game is corrupt. So you can't change the players and change the game. You can't hate the players, you got to hate the game. And you got to change the rules yourself. You got to get out there and say this is wrong, and it only takes one person, as Edward Snowden has showed us, to change the conversation and start something incredibly radically different than what we're doing right now.
This is the last clip I want to play from Jeremy Scahill so we can move along. He said the previous clip sets this one up in that here he's talking about oversight, the checks and balances. This is a scam, and in a week, probably the 1 week of the year where we're feeling most patriotic, most pro-American, most proud to be an American. We should be actually offended as American people. If you know what's going on, what's the bumper sticker? If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. So the people who are paying attention are outraged, and we should be offended. We should not be proud. There are lots of freedoms and liberties that we should be proud of that originated, but the current status of systems that have become so perverted, so corrupted, so distorted. It's just, I mean, we cannot be associated with it without some shame. That is my point. Here's Jeremy Scahill on why we should be offended.
Let me tell you a story about what the sort of state of oversight is right now in the U.S. Senate. There are a handful of U.S. senators that are allowed to go to what's called a Secured Classified Intelligence Facility, a SCIF, and to review certain memos, not all, but certain memos the White House has deemed appropriate to share with Congress. Congress by law is supposed to be overseeing all of the actions that are conducted around the world on any given day. And there are certain members of Congress that are by law supposed to be briefed on covert actions, particularly lethal operations. The White House has been stonewalling Congress and not providing them with all of the documents about the kill program. How does an American citizen get on a kill list, and how do they get off a kill list short of being killed in a hellfire strike? So these limited number of senators and representatives go into these padded rooms, essentially. They're not allowed to bring a writing utensil. They can't bring paper. They're not allowed to bring anything with a battery. And they look at certain memos, not all, that the White House has agreed to show them. And then they're not permitted to share what they've seen with anyone, not their constituents, not other lawmakers. That's the state of oversight on some of the most sensitive operations. It's thoroughly anti-democratic. The idea that even those that are elected with a mandate to oversee the actions of another branch of the U.S. government are basically just given part of the story should be deeply offensive to all Americans.
It's offensive to me, and this is why I'm playing the clip. Thanks, Jeremy. You should really go see the new movie, Dirty Wars, read the book. We could get into that a little bit later, but, Snowden really...
At the very least, watch one of his lectures from YouTube. I mean, it's gripping. It's spy novel stuff. It's far better than watching The Closer or any one of these crime dramas on TV. It's real life, and the stories he tells are just jaw-dropping. I mean, It's just amazing.
So you may have tuned into some of the Sunday morning talk shows yesterday on corporate filtered media, which I really hope you begin to shut out of your life. It's important to shut out the poison to start there. But if you happen to catch ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, he happened to have an exclusive interview with Julian Assange about Edward Snowden, and I want to play a couple of clips from that real quick. This is the first clip. And the first question.
And Mr. Assange, let me begin with you. Thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about where Edward Snowden is right now and where he's expected to go?
Thank you, George. I wish I could answer these questions of yours in more detail.
But in other words, where is he and where is he going? Next question. This next clip, Julian Assange talks about why the place from which the crimes that have been brought against Edward Snowden, where they've originated, is really significant. The chat room was just talking a minute ago about Virginia. The charges against Edward Snowden have originated out of Alexandria, Virginia. Also, the crimes that are brought against Julian Assange are originating out of Alexandria, Virginia. Why may that be an issue? Well, isn't there some rule about making sure that everyone has a fair trial in the justice system, air quotes, justice system, fair trial, and ask yourself, well, who actually would make up a jury of people living in Alexandria, Virginia? I mean, what kind of people live there and actually work in the area? I mean, they have to have some sort of NSA, FBI, CIA, some sort of government job. So here is Julian Assange on the interesting. Just listen to this.
We have been sucked into a grand jury in Alexandria, Virginia. That's where the charges for Mr. Snowden came from, Alexandria, Virginia. Well, what do we know about that district? It's 6 kilometres from the centre of Washington, D.C. The jury pool is made up of the CIA, Pentagon, etc. In the legal community in the United States, it's known as the rocket docket, because of the lack of scrutiny procedures have there. There's a 99% chance that a 99.97% chance that if you're a target of a grand jury, you'll be indicted, and a 99% chance that if you're indicted by a grand jury, you'll be convicted. So this is not a situation, ignoring all the political rhetoric which we've seen, which has been terrible over the past 2 weeks, where Mr. Snowden can feel that he would be afforded justice.
It is something serious. The other clip, of course, that's making the headlines that Julian Assange mentioned was asylum really is a right for all of us, and how the United States is being very hypocritical on this, as history has shown us in the past that the United States has been more than willing to allow prisoners asylum here from other countries, and so. The hypocrisy, right? The hypocrisy. Before we get to Glenn Greenwald, which we're going to spend the rest of the show going through this 2013 Socialism Conference from Chicago, which the video has been posted at filterfreeradio.com and facebook.com/filterfreeradio. I want to mention real quick, Paula Deen. Right, you've heard about Paula Deen in the news. Scott has a really interesting take on Paula Deen, which I really want him to share. But I wanted to mention this because I dug this clip out of this moment of clarity from Lee Camp, which, by the way, we run Lee Camp's most recent moment of clarity now as our third break that we take in the show instead of the Workers' Independent News, which we're no longer broadcasting. But this clip comes to us from a moment of clarity about a year ago that was titled Evidence of the End of the American Empire or something like that. Our American Empire is doomed. Here is Lee Camp.
Oh, wait, there's one more thing on here. It says, during the final years of the Roman, Ottoman, and Spanish empires, they made celebrities out of their chefs. Well, I don't think Jamie Oliver and Wolfgang Puck are going to like that you're saying that about them.
Scott, what are what's your take on this whole Paula Deen, and what is the take home that everyone's totally missing on this? Not that we should spend more than 3 minutes talking about it.
Well, Lee Camp just said it. I mean, we are, it's the end of an empire. We are making celebrities out of people who otherwise should have just run-of-the-mill jobs. And what that does is it perpetuates the myth that you too can be a celebrity, and that should be your dream. You should focus. You should be a celebrity, and and that's why people follow these Kim Kardashians of the world, these people who are famous for being famous and serve no other function other than to be our sort of, our what's the word I'm looking for? Gilded
professional media stars.
Yeah, but I mean they are our royalty. They are our so-called royalty. That's the whole thing with kingdoms. Everyone sort of looked up to the king as being wise, and everyone wanted to be royalty, but you couldn't be royalty unless you're born into it, and so on. That's sort of what, celebrity culture sort of is the myth that if you just are lucky or for whatever BS reason, you can be a celebrity, and it's as if that is some sort of reward for anything. I mean, God, who wants that kind of nonsense? It's just a burden, I would think, but
horrible
the larger point is that as Lee Camp pointed out, empires on their decline. And this so-called reality television stuff is, it's exemplary of bread and circus. It's bread and circus by, like the Roman Empire. Give them bread and give them circus and keep them occupied while the empire, falls apart, while Rome burns, And so Paula Deen is just another distraction. And of course she's a racist, fat, white woman from the South who, thinks there's a difference between black people and the N-word. It's really offensive, and people are like focused on this as if it's an issue, whereas who gives a shit what she thinks? She's nobody, and she's not important, and her opinions don't matter. So move on.
Oh, this just breaking news. I'm getting that there has been another tie broken with Paula Deen. The latest to break ties with her now is this right? Yeah, diabetes. Apparently, diabetes has officially broken its ties with Paula Deen, saying that it no longer wants to be associated with her in the future. So,
well, that's the other thing. Yeah, that's the other issue. Is I can't remember where I heard this, but it was somebody said, black people have been more hurt by her cooking recipes and her overuse of butter than her dropping the N-word.
Thank you.
She's killed more black people by them following her recipes, which do nothing but give hypertension and diabetes for people who eat them on a regular basis, than her just using the N-word and showing her ignorance. It's get her off the air, man. It's not for no other reason than people shouldn't be using that People shouldn't be cooking that shit, man. It's terrible. It's just really bad for you and perpetuating poor health of poor communities.
But so I really like your take on that. When you said that, I'm like, yeah, how come no one's mentioned the fact that if anything, she has caused a lot of harm to a lot of people, but from her.
That might have been the Daily Show I got that from, because that's not an original thought. I don't know where I heard that, but it was she's killing more black people than with her cooking than ever with the N-word.
So on that note, let's go ahead and this is a horrible segue, but I have no other way to do it. I want to get right to Glenn Greenwald speaking at the 2013 Socialism Conference in Chicago. Now, of course, Glenn Greenwald, really busy guy. He's actually he wasn't able to be there in person, so he joined the conference via a Skype chat. And the about hour long, it's a little short of an hour. It's like 55 minutes or so. That conversation is entirely up on our website with links to the original postings by We Are Many, I think is their organization, and the Socialism Conference. Glenn, the year before, spoke at the conference in person. This is a picture that I'm showing you of the year before, where he was actually able to speak about that to the audience at the conference live in person. And he references that. But here's the first clip, and this is a brilliant place to start this conversation with. And I think I want to do this. I'm going to do this from now on in all of my conversations as well. This is Glenn Greenwald at the Socialism Conference just a couple days ago, speaking in Chicago.
I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the brave, patriotic men and women of the National Security Agency, because they spend a great deal of time watching over me, making sure that I'm okay. And I do really appreciate it. You know, they're a little shy. They don't like to be seen. If you turn the lights on and shine the lights at them, they sort of scamper quickly under the kitchen cabinets. They sort of prefer the dark. You may not see them, but I think I speak for all of us when I say that I feel them here in my heart. And, you know, look, they're people, they have feelings, and so at the beginning of almost every conversation, I do insist that whoever I'm speaking with say hello to them, because it's just rude not to.
Hello, NSA. Hi. Hello.
Even though I'm quite certain that this is not the first socialism conference that they've attended.
It was a totally very lively crowd. It actually makes the video and the conversation that much more lively. It was a very lively crowd. It was really cool. And also, Glenn wanted to mention this before he actually got into the conversation. The Guardian won a really cool, very prestigious award. And I don't know if you heard this. The award that the Guardian received from all of their NSA reporting and this big Edward Snowden thing, it just happened like a day ago. Here's Glenn on that award that was given to the Guardian for this reporting.
I would be remiss before I began if I didn't acknowledge an extremely prestigious award that we at The Guardian received yesterday for the journalism that we've been doing in publishing the NSA stories. A lot of journalists and editors and the like have debates about what the most prestigious journalism award is. Is it a Polk Award or a Peabody or a Pulitzer? And those are definitely all prestigious awards, but I actually think the one that we got yesterday is a significant level above them all, and I'm very humbled and honored to have received this award. The U.S. Army announced yesterday that it was blocking access at all Army facilities across the world to the Guardian website in response to
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Apparently, the Army are old enough and mature enough to risk their lives to fight in wars, but not mature enough to read news articles that the rest of the world is reading.
Double fucking news flash.
So there you I love that. Interesting. The military banned access to the Guardian's website from all military bases in the entire world. Interesting. Yeah. There you go. This is a real quick, short one that we actually played earlier. And this is going to be something that we keep on our clip rotator button for quick fire access to play more often, more frequently for you. And a real quick one before we run to the break and play the most recent Lee Camp's moment of clarity here. It is not enough to talk about it. You got to be about it. You got to show up, get active, be the change, and make the difference.
There's really no point in talking about political problems and systemic injustices if you're not simultaneously grappling with the question of what is it that I as an individual can do about it.
Oh, I love that. When we come back from this real short break, a really revelation in Glenn Greenwald's own personal life on what he has learned from this Edward Snowden and how courage is contagious, and just a fame whore, really get over it. And really, journalists are not supposed to be lapdogs for the powerful. More independent, alternative, radical truth-telling media. It is Filter Free Radio on filterfreeradio.com. We'll be right back.
We need a movement of truth tellers. The kind of progressive grassroots movement.
A social movement that they can engage in that's not the politics of hatred, that's not the politics of fear, but the politics of hope.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
There's two ways to approach history. You sit in your armchair and you watch it on the news and you return to your PlayStation, or you get out in the streets and you make it.
They can push the rest of us to wake up and do something about this.
People need to rise up and say, I'm sick of this.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Seeing themselves as a huge movement to transform the nation.
The change that we want comes from below. It comes from a movement.
The American people can and will find ways to push for the kinds of changes that can get us out of this dilemma.
I want to see that change, and it's going to take people here in this country to be able to make that happen.
Filter Free Radio. FilterFreeRadio.com.
We got no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Follow like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending.
This is your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited about the gay marriage decision. I'm excited that we've decided there can't be a federal law banning love for a large number of Americans. And as I've said before, gay marriage is not harming anyone. What's harming people is straight couples getting married and having like 72 kids. If you want to get married, but if you want to have a kid over like 2 or 3, I think it should be voted on by everyone else on a case-by-case basis. So if you want to fire 14 kids into this world out of your semi-automatic assault vagina, they better be top of the line. If you want to shoot dozens of fleshy half-wits, hordes of hairless dipshits into the faces of innocent civilians, I think the rest of us should have a say. So I'm excited for the added equality our country now has, but we also must not allow this to be a distraction from the fact that our system continues to be gutted and befouled, muted and cowed. The Supreme Court tore up the Voting Rights Act the other day, so apparently we're back in 1965. Can't wait for them to put the separate water fountains back in. In fact, I'm just excited to see a water fountain again, as opposed to $3 bottled water shipped in from Canada and pissed in by Coca-Cola. Also, the NSA spying scandal has shown us that we no longer have our freedom from unreasonable, unwarranted search and seizure. In fact, that right was so important, I think it's in the Constitution. Let me check. Yeah, it is. Do you think they use like a whiteout to cover that up, or is it like a erasable pen situation, or maybe one of those Mad Magazine fold-over dealies? They just fold over the Fourth Amendment, cover it up that way. And finally, they're going after freedom of speech and expression. Jeff Olson is a man in San Diego who now faces a 13-year jail sentence for drawing anti-Bank of America messages on the sidewalk in chalk. As in chalk. As in the shit that cannot be removed from a sidewalk ever, unless there's a light drizzle. And it gets even better. The judge has forbid Olson and his lawyer from even mentioning freedom of speech or freedom of expression in the courtroom. Not only has our freedom of speech been taken away, but it's so fucking scary to the rich and powerful, just the mention of it could wreak havoc on our society. You can't just be speaking anything you want left and right. What's next? Man gonna marry a goat? We've gone from the Constitution being the thing that was supposed to guide our courts to it being the thing you can't even mention in the courts. By the way, Bank of America is about as evil as they come. Jeff Olson's chalk messages were the equivalent of throwing marshmallows at a 300-foot dragon with Tourette's. Because fire-breathing Tourette's would be like the worst kind of Tourette's. You know, the dragon walks up to his friends like, "Hey guys, how you doing? Fuck shit penis!" Boom! Whole village on fire. Bank of America is currently facing a class action lawsuit from former employees across the country who said they were pressured and bribed to tell homeowners they would help them stay in their homes, and meanwhile doing everything they could to get them foreclosed on. Bank of America took money from government agencies designed to help people keep their homes, pocketed it, and then still kicked the homeowners out. Fuck putting the bank execs in jail. They should be tarred and feathered. I mean, if there's any place that deserves some chalk messages calling them greed-infected viruses completely morally vacant, it's Bank of America. And Jeff Olson could go to jail for that, while Bank of America continues to walk free. Let's defend this man and those like him. Let's defend freedom of speech. That's been your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. The music here at the end is by George Martinez and the Global Block Collective. I'll have the link to that album in the description, as well as the links to all the info I mentioned, including Jeff Olson's story. Also, I'm performing live in Asheville, North Carolina, Portland, Maine, and Montreal in the coming days. Go to LeeCamp.net for the details. Keep fighting.
Take back the land. We growing food on rooftops to make sure the hunger stops. But if we liberate the soil, we running the cops. The blue walls of silence, shutting dissent with violence. Too many kids are falling asleep to the sound of sirens while they...
Hi, this is Kenny Pick from Turn Up the Night. Here are some of the hijinks you can expect from my show.
Also, news just recently came out about a 15-year-old girl, I think over in the UK.
Yeah.
Who's only eating McNuggets, and this 15-year-old
get real sick.
Yeah, her tongue swelled up and she collapsed.
What's the technical medical term for eating nothing but chicken nuggets?
I think that would be suicide.
Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick, streaming live every Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern at Radio or Not, Talk Radio 1, Progressive Blend Radio, and KennyPick.com. Looking for filters? Check out your coffee maker. This is Filter Free Radio. Drink up.
I'm playing a little bit more music that I want to play just because YouTube has already put a crackdown on the Filter Free Radio account. For the next 3 more months, I can't upload any videos that are over 15 minutes anyways. So the only way that you can podcast free entire episodes of Filter Free Radio is on iTunes right now. You can find links to our Facebook page, our YouTube, everything on our website, filterfreeradio.com. It is good to be with you live, and I want to give a quick shout out to.
Yeah, man, I love that riff.
Oh, don't you love the strokes there, man? Yeah, good.
Yeah.
When we were putting up the whole episodes on YouTube, I won't play anything that's copywritten because YouTube will come in and be like, shh, But we're not putting it up on YouTube, so I don't give a shit. And I like to play some good music on the show too, once in a while that we enjoy. But back into the conversation. I wanted to give a quick before that though. I want to give a quick shout out to everyone in the chat room, which you can participate whenever we're broadcasting live in the free chat room at filterfreeradio.com. Just click on Watch Chat Free, or radioornot.com. Adam and Skeptical Scott, Snork, Y2K, Will from Chicago. There are a couple of other folks in there. Sue, the new
Victor, Lava Q,
and Sue Nethercutt is in the new chat room. And I think she might be coming over to the old chat room. But it's, I hope to at some point migrate everyone to the new chat room. Which the problem is I'm struggling with embedding the new chat room on our website. So, anyways, you don't want to hear about the behind the scenes junk. I'm just a radio guy. I don't know how to do the
You are
computer.
not a computer nerd.
Exactly. So, your website sucks. I hope the radio show's okay. If the radio
That's
show
awesome.
sucks,
Would
tell
you
me.
fix it for us? Because I can't do it.
Glenn Greenwald, the reporter from The Guardian, who has reported to us and brought to light, new shit has come to light, Edward Snowden, the NSA scandal, the massive surveillance, basically the United States government attempt to more or less eradicate personal privacy via cell phone communication, email communication, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. That's what it is. So there's a lot going on here, and I want to share Glenn Greenwald speaking to the Socialism Conference in Chicago via Skype this year. At the previous year, he was at the event live, and we posted the link to this on our website. Here is, I think, if not the most important point, the second most important point to take home from this conversation, and that is never for a minute doubt your ability to change the world. You know, you all the time despair sets in. You know, you go to this protest, you show up, you put on the suit, you do a good job acting, you make a really cool video, no one notices, you only get published on Dandelion Salad, which is an awesome fucking website. But no one else notices, and so the despair sets in. You're like, well, what difference did I make? How am I going to change the world? What am I really doing? No, you can never doubt your ability to change the world, and this is Glenn Greenwald. And I think there was a little bit of Jacob Dean's 5-5-5 plan in here, if you know what I'm saying.
What I actually started to realize about all of this is courage is contagious. If you take a courageous step as an individual, you will literally change the world, because you will affect all sorts of people in your immediate vicinity who will then affect others, who will then affect others. You should never doubt your ability to change the world. And the other thing that I realized is that it doesn't matter who you are as an individual or how formidable or powerful the institutions that you want to challenge are. Mr. Snowden is a high school dropout. His parents worked for the federal government. He grew up in a lower middle class environment in a military community in Virginia. He ended up enlisting in the United States Army because he thought the Iraq War at first was noble. He then did the same with the CIA and the NSA because he thought those institutions were noble. He's a person who has zero privilege, zero power, zero position, and zero prestige, and yet he, by himself, has literally changed the world, and therefore so can many of you.
Hell yes. That is so powerful and amazing. Never for a minute doubt your ability to change the world. What do you think about that one, Scott, man? What do you think?
I do. I love the. We're gonna play. Do you have the clip? I don't know if it's. I think it's earlier on in his talk where he says, how he met Edward Snowden and the whole, how Edward Snowden coaxed him to meet him in Hong Kong, and how it was just, he didn't believe who he was, and then his assumptions were, prior to meeting him face to face, was that he was some 65-year-old bureaucrat on the downside of his career who had nothing to lose.
Right.
That was safe enough that, whatever, I have nothing to lose. My life's almost, I'm on the downside of my life, right? And he was stunned to find out how young and uneducated, if you will, at least not, unclassically educated, with degrees and such, that Edward Snowden was. I mean, it's just remarkable. And he also thought that he said, upon seeing just a smidgen, because he just gave him, a little taste of the information or Snowden gave Greenwald just a little taste of the information that he had to lure him to Hong Kong to meet with him personally. Greenwald said, this guy has to be somebody who's pretty high up in the government to have this kind of access.
Right.
And so not only was he stunned that here's this young 29-year-old, but that he worked for Booz Allen and wasn't some sort of, high secret level official in the CIA, FBI, or whatever. I mean, it's remarkable that the exposure that private contractors have, and there's 400,000 of them, to this kind of information.
I don't have that exact clip ready, Scott, but it was a really cool point, and you can watch the whole video on the website. But essentially, yeah, he's saying that before he actually met Edward Snowden in person and found out who he was, the communication via email and telephone obviously has to be very, very, very careful. And, Edward Snowden at that point is not going to come out and say anything, too revealing. And so it's a very secretive, but, I need to get to you, Glenn, but I can't tell you who I am kind of thing. But I've got something that you really want to see, but I can't tell you who I am, and I have to meet you in Hong Kong kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have that exact...
Yeah, it's real Cold War spy shit.
Right. I don't have that exact clip, but this is what he says next. And I think this is really important, and kind of what he talks about what he's learned from this, and a little bit of,
Yeah, I love this.
It's like he anticipated him to be some old senior official in some sort of senior position, not only because that's a kind of position that would have this access to this information, but also you got to understand what you're about to throw away in terms of the rest of your life. And he's thinking maybe Glenn Greenwald, before he meets Edward Snowden, thinking, well, maybe this leaker is going to be an elderly person because they've already seen their better days, and they don't mind spending the rest of their life in jail because there's not much rest of life there. Anyways, and like Scott's saying here is the revelation in Glenn Greenwald himself that it's this 29-year-old kid who's willing to come forward and throw the rest away his life. This is what he's learned, and there's more to life. Check this out.
What would lead somebody with their entire life in front of them, who had a perfectly desirable life, living with his longtime girlfriend in Hawaii with career stability, a reasonably well-paying job, what would lead somebody like that to throw all of that away and become an instant fugitive and probably spend the rest of their life in a cage? And the more I spoke with him about it, the more I understood. And the more I understood, the more overwhelmed I became, and the more of a formative experience it had for me and will have for the rest of my life. Because what he told me over and over in different ways, and it was so pure and passionate that I never doubted its authenticity for even a moment, was that there's more to life than material comfort or career stability, or trying to simply prolong your life as long as possible. What he continuously told me was that he judged his life not by the things that he thought about himself, but by the actions that he took in pursuit of those beliefs.
Boom! Did you catch all that?
No, what was that last part?
It's good stuff. We're flat out of time to repeat anything. But, we got like 15 minutes left. I've got like half an hour's worth of stuff. So the whole video is up on the website, as I've mentioned. And, there's a lot of conversation, of course, in the corporate media that wants to participate in the character assassination and not actually talk about what's going on. What has the NSA done?
Kill the messenger.
Yeah, we'll kill the messenger, right? We have to defend Edward Snowden. Why do we have to defend him? And why do we have to encourage others? Keyword there, encourage. Back to Glenn Greenwald.
The reason that it's always so common for people like Edward Snowden to be demonized, the reason it's so important to attribute psychological illness to him, the way they did with Bradley Manning, the way they do with all whistleblowers, the way they tried to do with Daniel Ellsberg, is precisely because they know what I just said, which is that courage is contagious, and that he will set an example for other people to similarly come forward and blow the whistle on the corrupt and illegal and deceitful things that they're doing in the dark. They need to make a negative example out of him so that that doesn't happen. And that's the reason why people like Edward Snowden are so demonized and attacked, and it's why it's up to all of us to defend him and hold him up as the noble example that he is, so that he does continue to
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Scott, your thoughts?
That's exactly right. The danger of a good example. Lest his actions catch on and start a deluge of people stepping forward and going, oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about. Here's how corrupt it is where I work, and so on, whatever institution, whether it's banking or public service, you fill in the blank, whatever you think may be corrupted, and I'm sure there's many. lest he be a good example. And that's the whole character assassination of the corporate media who want to maintain their own status quo and money, et cetera, et cetera. And so you really have to wonder when people start asking you, hey, what do you think of Edward Snowden? Rather than saying, what do you think about what Edward Snowden did? Or what do you think of the information that he has disclosed? It's obviously, one is personal, one is the much larger issue in the reality of what he did. And so the biggest disappointment, Edward Snowden said this initially, was that I'll be disappointed if people, only focus on me and not my actions. And so that's why he's not giving public interviews, because it's not about him.
Exactly. It's not about him. He's not a fame whore, as a lot of people are trying to label him as. I mean, if he was, he'd be on all of the. I mean, the media is drooling at the feet of Glenn Greenwald to get to Edward Snowden in an interview. You can bet it. You can bet your money that every media star in corporate media is trying to get the exclusive Edward Snowden interview. And if that was the case, then he'd do it. So. I love this next clip. Journalists are not lapdogs to those in power. And this goes back to journalism and real journalism being kind of the fourth estate, the real independent, check and balance of the system. It's journalism is not supposed to be a party to the parties, and it's not supposed to be lapdogs to those in power. In fact, it's supposed to be questioning those in power. And this is Glenn Greenwald speaking at the 2013 Socialism Conference via Skype in Chicago just a couple days ago.
Bill Keller was trying to say that the New York Times is radically different than what WikiLeaks does, because unlike WikiLeaks, which simply publishes whatever it wants, the New York Times under Bill Keller went to the Obama administration ahead of time and said, these are the things that we think we ought to publish. Do you think we should? And if the U.S. government said, you shouldn't publish this, and you shouldn't publish that, and you shouldn't publish this other thing, because to do so will endanger national security, Bill Keller proudly said the New York Times didn't publish it. And he was beaming like a third grader who had just gotten a gold star from his teacher when he said in this BBC interview, the Obama administration has continuously said that we have been very responsible in how we've published. And the reason why that to me seems like polar opposites is because David Halberstam viewed the measurement of good journalism as defined by how much you anger the people in power that you're covering. Whereas Bill Keller defines good journalism, and I think most modern establishment journalists define it this way as well, by how much you please the people in power that you're covering. And for me, if you are pleasing the people in power with the things that you're disclosing, you may be very good at your job, but your job is not journalism.
Let's just be clear that your job is not journalism. I love that. I thought that was fucking awesome. So there you go.
Yeah, because that's the job of the fifth estate. That's the job of the fifth estate, or the fourth column, as they call it. It's the final check on unchecked power. I mean, when you have all three branches that function, or not, they don't even function the way they're supposed to. But the point is that that's what journalism does. Journalism shines a light in the shadows of secrecy, which you can't have secrecy in a democracy. That's just a complete oxymoron. And so that's what journalism's for. And we don't have journalism anymore. It's part of the corporate state's corruption of the public media, is paying these guys millions of dollars to shut up.
Yep.
And not ask the real questions, because they'll lose their job.
Or and on the local level, it's, well, go cover the Doma celebration and completely ignore the Guantanamo torture demonstration in the middle of the street, in the middle of rush hour traffic.
Well, yeah, a celebration is far more interesting than a protest, right? I mean, it's not threatening.
We don't have time to play the clip where Glenn, he's kind of gloating. And I love it, because it's the whole "I told you so" clip where Glenn talks about, I've been writing about this massive surveillance state for years, and everyone's, doubted me and debated me and said I'm crazy and conspiracy theory like.
Yeah, no, you can't prove that.
And
well,
then
now you can prove it.
And yeah, right. And the whole Woody Allen clip story it's awesome. I don't have time to play it, but you should go watch.
Oh yeah, I love that.
The entire video of Glenn. This is a really long. It's 2 minutes and I'm going to play this, and then Scott and I are going to give our final thoughts, and then it'll be time to wrap up. But this is the final point here. I think the most important take-home, and Glenn really lays it out here, do not be afraid. And then I'll share what a former president had to say about this as well, which we'll have time for before the end of the show. But final point, don't be afraid. Glenn Greenwald speaking via Skype to the Socialism Conference in Chicago.
One of the things that has been most disturbing over the last 3 to 4 years has been this climate of fear that has emerged in exactly the circles that are supposed to challenge government. It has emerged among investigative journalists, including the ones at the most protected media outlets like the New York Times and others. The real investigative journalists who are at these institutions, who do real reporting, are petrified of the U.S. government now. Their sources are beyond petrified. The investigative journalist Jane Mayer, who did so much excellent work uncovering the torture regime during the Bush years, has said that because of the Obama war on whistleblowers and journalism that Jeremy described, investigative journalism in the United States has come to a, quote, standstill. If you talk to anybody in journalism or in the government, they are petrified of even moving. We have had it has been almost impossible to get anyone inside the government to call us back with regard to any story because people are so scared that if anything on their phone record shows that they've called me or called The Guardian, they will be held in extreme suspicion as leakers.
Bingo.
And it's not just journalists, but also dissident groups that have been infiltrated and Muslim communities that have been monitored in all sorts of ways. There is a climate of fear in exactly those factions that are most intended to put a check on on those in power. And that has been by design. And one of the things that I set out to do as one of my principal priorities and how I've done this story and how I've gone about that is to show that you actually don't need to be afraid, that you can stand up to the United States government and be defiant when they deserve it and exercise your constitutional rights without that.
To petition the government for redress of grievances. It is your right to do it. And your duty.
And so that is the message that I hope more than anything is conveyed on a visceral level. The revelations about the NSA are important. The things that we learn about journalism is important. But ultimately, the thing that matters most is that the rights that we know we have as human beings are rights that we ought to exercise and that nobody can take away from us. And the only way those rights can ever be taken away is if we give in to the fear that is being deliberately imposed. And so that, I hope, is the message of Edward Snowden and of the reporting that we're doing, which is you not only shouldn't be afraid, but do not be afraid. Thank you very much.
I didn't edit that applause at all. Only, I edited it to cut it down to shorten it up because we're out of time. But that was really cool. Don't be afraid. Don't ever underestimate your ability to change the world because you can make a difference. And then real quick, this clip we're talking about fear. Don't be afraid. The only thing you have to fear is fear itself. Everyone knows the clip, but no one knows the whole freaking quote. Here is the 20-second clip.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance.
There you go. Scott, your final thoughts, man.
Well, I mean, I think it's important for people not to lose hope and not to be afraid. And fear is designed to crush hope. And then, of course, hope has to have action. And so, hope affirms that which we must affirm. And every act that imparts hope is a victory in itself. And so I think it's important for us to get active and to feed our own hope. And I would like to leave you with a quote from Percy Besythe, and I can't I'm mispronouncing that name. It's from 1819. It's just the one end of the poem, and it says, "Rise like lions after slumber in unvanquishable number. Shake your chains to the earth like dew, which in sleep have fallen on you. We are many, and they are few."
That's some deep shit, man. We'll leave it at that because we're totally out of time. And Scott gets the last word. That's brilliant, man. Thank you. Thanks for always being by my side, being our super duper awesome mass producer, and just brilliant all around, kick-ass good guy. If you want to get in contact with Scott, you can always email him skeptical@filterfreeradio.com, or you can find us on Facebook, our website, filterfreeradio.com. Big thanks to everyone who makes the show possible. Nicole Sandler, RadioOrNot.com, DJ Downtown, ProgressiveBlendRadio.com, the one, the only Kenny Pick of Turn Up the Night and Liberal Justice Radio for syndicating this program. Big thanks to DanoSongs.com, Kevin McLeod at Incompetech.com, and our good friend, the Roy Burt at CrownRecords.com for music production. Big thanks to everyone in the chat room. You're the reason why we're doing this. Adam and Snork and Will and Vic and the other people in the new chat room, Sue and everyone, get out there and get active. That's what it's all about. Tag your it, right? But get active and be the change, and then make the difference and go above and beyond, and just show up, or at least start the conversation and see where that may take you. Because who knows, you may end up playing some street political theater. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Peace, love, and all that good jazz.
Filter Free
There's
Radio.
a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop.
So give me something to believe, 'cause I am living just to believe, and I need something more to keep on breathing for. So give me something to believe.
The revolution will be broadcast
Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filter Free Radio.